Hello folks, welcome back to the SwiMove course. So in this lesson, we're going to teach you about the object wrapping and unwrapping. First of all, we'll go over the overview of object wrapping. Then we'll go deeper to the details of the wrapping and unwrapping. After that, we're going to consider some security considerations. And then we'll have an exercise for you. All right, let's start with the overview of object wrapping. So what is object wrapping? Object wrapping in the context of Move programming language, often used in blockchain, is a pattern used for enhancing the security, integrity of objects and promotes data composability. And why do we use object wrapping? So first of all, it's for the encapsulation. Object wrapping helps encapsulate or hides the properties and implementation details of an object from other objects. It only exposes the methods and properties that are necessary. This reduces the complexity of the system and improves modularity. The second is the access control. It allows controlled access to the properties of the object. And only the methods and properties that are exposed can be accessed, providing an interface to interact with the object while keeping the details private. And the third is the security. By encapsulating the object, it provides a layer of security. The properties of the object can be manipulated only in the ways defined by the object methods. This ensures that the object remains in a valid state and cannot be tampered with unexpectedly. And last one is the maintenance and upgradation. So object wrapping makes it easier to upgrade or modify the system without affecting other parts of the system, as long as the interface remains the same. Changes to the implementation of the object will not affect the rest of the system. In SwiMove, object wrapping is particularly crucial due to the immutable and secure nature of the blockchain. It is essential to ensure that the state and properties of an object can be controlled and manipulated only in specific ways, maintaining the integrity and security of the blockchain. And there's three different ways for the Sui object wrapping, which are direct wrapping, wrapping through option, and wrapping through vector. So let's explore them one by one. The first one is direct wrapping. So this method involving putting a Sui object type directly as a field in another Sui object type. The wrap object cannot be unwrapped unless we destroy the wrapping object. And the second one is wrapping through option. So wrapping through option is a method that provides flexibility in object wrapping by allowing the wrap object to be optional within the wrapping type. In this approach, the wrapping type may or may not contain the wrap object, and the wrap object can be replaced with a different object if desired. And the last one is wrapping through vector. So wrapping through vector is a concept when objects are wrapped within a vector field of another Sui object. This approach allows for the inclusion of 0, 1, or multiple wrap objects of the same type within the vector field. In SwiMove, when we wrap an object, it gets put inside another object called the wrapper. The wrapper provides an external interface and controls who can access our original object. Right, let's see some code examples of object wrapping. So this is the direct wrapping. The code defines two structures, special ability and hero character. The special ability structure represents a special ability and has the following fields: the ID, which is a UID, and it's used to identify the unique ID of the special ability, the ability name, damage, and the cooldown time. Then we have the hero character structure, represents a hero character that concludes the following fields: ID, hero name, health, defense, also the ability, which is our special ability structure. So this structure defines the properties and relationship between special abilities and also the hero. The special ability structure encapsulates the details of a special ability. while the hero character represents a hero with its social attributes, including their special abilities. The unique feature of direct wrapping here is the special ability cannot be changed or unwrapped from the hero character, unless the hero character itself is destroyed or replaced. Creating a new hero character with a special ability could be done as follows. In this function, a new special ability is created and directly wrapped with a new hero character. The newly created hero character is then transferred to the player, initiating the transaction here. So besides from the directly wrapping, we also have wrapping through option. In this example, the hero character directly contains the option of the weapon structure, which means that the hero character may or may not have a weapon. It's important to know that when an object is wrapped, it no longer exists independently on chain. So we cannot look up the object by its ID. This object becomes part of the data of the object that wraps it. At some point, we can take out the wrapped object and transfer it to an address. This process is called unwrapping. When an object is unwrapped, it will become an independent object again and can be accessed directly on-chain. The object ID stays the same across wrapping and unwrapping. Alright, so finally we have a wrapping through vector. In this example, we have defined equipment and character structure. The character has an equipment field, which is a vector of equipment. This signifies that the character can carry multiple pieces of equipment. Alright, we have introduced object wrapping. Now let's go to object unwrapping. So unwrapping, on the other hand, refers to the process of taking out the wrapped object and transferring it to an address. This is generally done in the middle of a move execution and cannot be persisted on-chain. This is because a non-sway object cannot flow across the move-sway boundary, and one must unpack the non-sway object at some point and deal with sway object, extracting the encapsulate object. So how to unwrap? In the case of unwrapping, one common method is to call the unwrap function, which takes an object and its address as arguments and returns the object at that address, effectively unwrapping it. Let's say this game example. So in this game, players can find loot boxes and which contains the treasury. These loot boxes can be unwrapped by a specific player. So this code defines two related data structure. The treasure structure represents the treasure, containing its unique identifier, name, and value. The loot box structure represents a loot box, containing its unique identifier, treasure, and the intended player for the loot box. Alright, so here is an example for creating a loot box. This piece of code defines a public entry function called createLootBox that takes three parameters: treasury of type treasure, intended player of the type address, and the transaction of type and mutable transaction context. Inside this function, a new instance of the lootbox structure is created and assigned to the variable lootbox. The ID field of the lootbox structure is initialized with the result of the object new function call. And the treasury field is assigned the value of the treasury parameter passes to the function here. And the intended player is assigned the value of the intended player parameter. After creating the lootbox, the code performs a transfer of the lootbox directly to the intended player using transfer function. And the lootbox variable and the intended player variable are passed as arguments to the transfer function. Let's see how to unwrap a lootbox. So this code defines a public entry function called unwrapLootBox that takes two parameters. One is the lootbox and the other is the transaction context. So within the function, The code first checks if the person opening the loot box is the intended player by using the assert. It compares the loot box to the intended player and see if that's a transaction that's under. So if they're not equal, the assertion fails and the execution is halted. Next, the code performs a destruction assignment of the loopbox variable, extracting the ID treasury, the intended player, from the loopbox. Since the intended player is not used anywhere, it is assigned to the placeholder here. And after the destructing the assignment, the code transfers the treasury to the transaction sender using the transfer function. And finally, the code deletes the loopbox using the object delete function, passing the ID as an argument. Okay, let's see some security consideration during this process. So the first thing to think about is access control. When only the authorized party should be able to initialize a wrap, access, or unwrap. This can be ensured through permission checks in the implementation. Then comes the privacy. The wrap objects should be kept private. The service provider should not be able to access or steal the underlying objects. To ensure this, object can be encrypted before being wrapped. And then it's the integrity. So the integrity of the objects during the wrapping process must be maintained. This means that the objects should not be altered during the wrap process. This can be ensured through the cryptographic checks. And then it's auditability. All actions should be auditable. This means that there should be a clear record of all object wrapping and unwrapping activities, including who performed the action and when it was performed. And lastly, we have the error handling. So proper error handling mechanism should be in place to manage and mitigate any issues that arise during the object wrapping and unwrapping process. Finally, we'll do a three-move exercise to consolidate our knowledge. This exercise will involve structure definition, ability usage, function implementation, and return values. So you'll try to complete the card game module. And the core of the card game module has creating card and player objects, implementing card drawing logic, and also the card swapping logic. And you can also check out our exercise doc, which will be released with these PowerPoints in our GitHub repository. Okay, so that's the end of this lesson, and I hope you enjoyed it.